Welcome back to another episode of Talks Comics here at My Comic Universe. I'm your host, Brian.
And I'm Brandon. And today's episode is all about Gideon Falls, the Pentoculus. It's the fourth story arc of this great series by Jeff Lemire, artist Andrea Sorrentino, and colorist Dave Stewart. Now, the title of the story arc is The Pentoculus. I think that's how you say it.
Pentoculus?
Pentoculus?
But we're going to talk about it here on our
it's a great
episode.
story arc, and we're going to talk all about it. Now, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button in the bottom corner so that you can make sure you stay up to date on all of our upcoming videos.
So in this episode, we are going to talk about the story arc. We're going to give our opinions. We're going to go over a little bit about the creative team behind this series. And finally, we're going to recommend some graphic novels from this creative team of Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. Let's talk about this story.
Yeah, so from the previous story arc, it was a little bit more crazy. There was a lot of interdimensional travel, with Father Fred and stuff, and the Black Barn. So now with this story arc, it's a little bit more grounded, which is something that I like. So what's something that you liked about this?
What I found interesting in this chapter was the fact that we lead up to this climactic battle between our hero and the Laughing Man.
Yeah.
The final confrontation between the two of them. And this whole time there's been this duality between the two of them where they've been clashing and pulling and pushing between Norton or Danny and the Laughing Man. So finally seeing this in the end and seeing everybody like Father Fred and all the characters really made this story for me. It kept me kept me glued to the series, and it kept me continuing on further down this arc.
Each story arc keeps adding on to the next, and it keeps getting better and better. And now, one thing I really liked about this story arc is that it added a lot, it answered a lot of questions from the first two story arcs,
It did.
And it brought a lot of these characters together.
It did a very good job of doing that. But you know what was really cool was all the different, interdimensional changes, the different dimensions they went to and that they were pulled in and out of. And then also noting that Bishop Burke was also he was connected to the Plowman the whole time.
Yeah.
And that he had a Pentoculus of his own and was able to send them into these different dimensions. I find that really cool in a series, and especially in a horror graphic novel series like this, but giving it kind of a sci-fi element.
One thing I really liked is, again, like we said, how it ties everything together. So we got Father Fred, and he's with Dr. Zoo, and,
Right.
he got transferred back to reality, and he's, a little confused, and he doesn't really remember everything.
Right.
And so they go to Norton's apartment, and then that's where, Father Fred gets introduced to all of that evidence that, Norton has been collecting his whole life.
Yeah.
And he sees the pieces of the Black Barn, and then that helps to confirm the Black Barn for Dr. Zoo.
What's very interesting in those panels is I feel like Fred himself is feeling like he's seeing a reflection of himself, in the pieces of the Black
Exactly,
Barn. So it's very cool.
That's what's so cool about this whole series is that this whole mystery of the Black Barn is consuming so many people, and
Right.
It's just driving people crazy, and they see that in each other, and that's how they all connect to each other, which is really cool.
Dr. Zoo and Fred.
Exactly,
They're
yeah.
kind of similar characters, and they kind of team up together. And the same thing with Danny or Norton and Dr. Sutton. They're kind of pushed together as well. It does have a little bit, not to spoil, but it does have a bit of a tragedy because we lose a few characters along the way in this.
Yeah.
But it may be because it's this interdimensional time play that they're throwing at us that makes us kind of believe that these characters might still be alive in another dimension.
Yeah. So let's talk about this interdimensional thing a little bit. So one thing about this whole series is that it's so confusing. It goes back in time to the early 1900s, and then we learn a lot more about what started this interdimensional thing.
Right.
It's Norton's Pentoculus machine that caused this rift into the the dimensions.
Exactly.
And then it lets this evil entity, God loose, and snuck its way into reality.
It's kind of got that very similar kind of storyline to maybe a Legion storyline, with Farouk in a way,
Yeah.
kind of bleeding into, but that was more of like a possession. This is more of like something escaping. Now, the other thing I did want to talk about before we get through all of this is the art. Like, the art is really
we
well
have
done.
to talk about the art because that's
It's amazing.
bottom line. That's the best thing about this series.
It's
I mean, the
very
writing
cool.
is amazing, but the art just like really captures the whole tone of the whole series.
It really is. It's very like surrealist, and it's got and it complements the story, and it's got these different textures and tones that kind of carry as the series goes on, especially the panels where it's like you're traveling along with our characters through the dimensional rifts,
Exactly,
through the barn.
It's great, and we got to give both Andrea Sorrentino and Dave Stewart, credit, because the coloring that Dave Stewart does to bring out the effects of Andrea Sorrentino's art is
He does a great
truly
job.
amazing.
Yeah, he did a great job on this art, and you know what? Familiar face, because
Yeah.
he did the art on Silver Surfer Black as well.
And he's also works on The Flash with Joshua Williamson.
And he's also done Black Hammer with Jeff Lemire.
I want to talk a little bit more about Norton and his
Okay.
identity, and like, so we're not sure who he is,
Yeah.
and so we talked a little bit about Father Fred and Dr. Zoo, but now on the other end of the spectrum, because this whole series is all about a dual storyline taking
is.
place, so then we have Norton and Clara. And, we
Yes.
kind of mentioned it a little bit in the beginning, with the hospital, and they're with their
Right.
dad, and so there's this whole thing, with, he's still digging through the trash, she's calling him Danny, and then, like, I like how,
He's
like,
relapsing is what he's doing. Yeah, I can see that a lot in his character.
exactly, and then we have Danny or Norton, but then
Right.
we have the Laughing Man, and we don't know if this is a different version of Norton, from the
Right.
past, or just a different dimension,
Maybe it's his fear or his own evil side of it.
Well, it kind of seems like, in my opinion, it seems like this evil entity, broke through and then took the host body of, a version of Norton.
He wants to use him as the vessel. As his
Exactly,
vessel,
yeah, because
so-
he's the perfect vessel or
Right.
something, yeah. But yeah, let's talk about the end of the story arc.
So like we were saying, this leads up to this big climactic end.
Danny or Norton, and his
Right.
father, and they're going to find the plowman.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, so they
There's
go and they
this
find
big
the plowman, and
setup for the plowman.
There's this whole mythology or something story that there's these 5 people that need to travel to
seal the gate
Exactly.
and seal the entity back inside of the dimension.
so people are telling
Right.
Father Fred and Zoo, or Bishop was telling Father Fred and Zoo that all
Exactly.
5 of them need to come
Need to
back
come
and
back.
things like that. Norton and his father, and they find these plowmen, and then they make a plan to basically destroy the Black Barn.
Yeah, that's their whole game plan, because they realize there's no defeating the Laughing Man.
And I like how they kind of play into is it just a multiverse kind of interdimensional thing, or is it also a
yeah.
spiritual plane kind of thing, or is it a mix of both?
Yeah, it's one of those things that leaves you guessing. I think it may have to do with some sort of a purgatory, really.
It could too, yeah, we don't know.
We really don't know.
And
But-
so it leads off to this, big cliffhanger of,
Yeah.
what's going to happen next. Is the Black Barn really destroyed? What's going to happen to all these characters?
I guess we'll have to find out in May, because that's when the next issue comes
Oh my
out.
God, May.
It's all the way then. So next in our episode, we do want to talk a little bit about the creative team of Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino.
Yeah, because they have done so much great stuff
They
together.
really have. Both of them got different starts in the industry. Actually, Jeff is a comic book writer and a cartoonist who got started in the industry in 2005. After self-publishing a book entitled Lost Dogs, and moved on to working for Top Shelf Productions, working on this little series, a mini-series called Fortress. And eventually he got recognized by Marvel and DC and went on to do some really cool series like Green Arrow and Old Man Logan. And
Yeah, those are great series.
and they are great series. And along the way, he got to meet this Italian artist, Andrea Sorrentino, who he got his start on a God of War comic book series that came out in 2012, I think, or 2010.
that's
And it was
interesting.
written by Marv Wolfman. So it was a very short mini-series that they wrote for the very popular video game series.
Cool.
And eventually he got recognized by Marvel as well for his talents, as you can tell from his very cool, like, surrealist type art from Gideon Falls. And he went on to do Green Arrow and Old Man Logan with Jeff Lemire. We also want to recommend some of their graphic novels here in our episode that you can read and pick up on Amazon today, and it'll give you an opportunity to get familiar with Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino's work.
Yeah, you're definitely going to want to pick up some of these.
6 County. So it's very recommended by all comic book fans. So I would recommend that series as well. And I would also recommend Green Arrow and Moon Knight, which he did in 2016, as well as Old Man Logan, as we said, and one of my personal favorite series, Black Hammer.
Yeah, Black Hammer is a really great series.
It really is. It's one heck of a great series to check out. So if you'd like to check out any of those, we'll put the links below, and you can find all of those graphic novels of Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino's work on Amazon. But I think that really covers our episode today.
Yeah, I mean, I feel Jeff Lemire is like one of the hardest working comic book writers, in the industry today. I mean, right now, him and Andrea Sorrentino are working on Joker Killer Smile, which will be our next episode, so make sure you check that out.
And it's going to be a great one, because that is a fun little mini-series.
It's a 3-part mini-series, and then they just announced a new one-shot, Batman the Smile Killer.
Oh, cool. All right. So we want to thank everybody for joining us on this episode. Don't forget, you can always follow us here at My Comic Universe. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel here in the corner of the page.
Yeah, and make sure you check out our social media pages. We're all over Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Make sure you follow us so that you can stay up to date on all of our upcoming content. And we have extra content on those channels, so you definitely want to check that out.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see everybody next time.